emerald green water, or a deep blue bay, powder soft white sand, or historic waterfront streets, luxury resorts and Crab Island energy, or naval heritage and laid-back coastal cool. On Florida's Emerald Coast, you can spend your morning dolphin watching on a quiet bay, your afternoon floating in water so clear it feels tropical, and your evening enjoying fresh seafood as the sun melts into the horizon. And right here along this stunning coastline sit two of the Panhandle's biggest rivals, Destin and Pensacola. At first glance, they might seem similar, but in reality, they offer completely different experiences. One is the glittering world's luckiest fishing village, famous for its sugar-white sands, crystal-clear water, and high-energy harbor life. The other is a vibrant coastal city, rich in history, culture, and home to iconic Blue Angels flyovers, with miles of wild, untouched shoreline where sunsets feel timeless. So which destination truly delivers the ultimate Florida beach vacation? In this video, we're putting Destin and Pensacola head-to-head across the categories that actually matter: food, attractions, vibe, walkability, and overall value. And by the end, only one will earn the title of your next must-visit Florida escape. Let's start with attractions and culture in Destin. If there's one place that really captures Destin, it's the Harbor Boardwalk. This is basically the heart of the town, right on the water, where you'll find restaurants, shops, boat tours, fishing charters, and dolphin cruises all in one place. The boardwalk stretches along the harbor, and it's like the main hub for water activities like parasailing, jet skis, and fishing trips, which is a big part of Destin's identity as a fishing town. In the past, the city grew from a small fishing village into a major tourist destination from this same harbor. And even today, it's home to one of the largest fishing fleets in Florida. Another place you'll hear about constantly in Destin is Crab Island. And despite the name, it's actually not an island at all. It's a shallow sandbar just north of the harbor where boats anchor and people hang out in waist-deep clear water. People get there by pontoon boat, kayak, or tour boat, and once you're there, it's basically a floating social scene with food vendors, music, and people relaxing in the water. Even though Crab Island is completely free, you'll still need a shuttle or boat to get there. The cheapest ones start from around $45 to $55 for a round trip and increase depending on how long you plan to stay there. If you want something more natural and less busy, Henderson Beach State Park is one of the most popular places to experience Destin's famous white sand beaches. The beaches here are known for their extremely white quartz sand and emerald-colored water, which is actually where the Emerald Coast gets its name. The park protects a long stretch of coastline with dunes, walking trails, picnic areas, and open beach space. So it's one of the best places to actually enjoy the natural side of Destin instead of just the tourist areas. Many travel guides list it as one of the top things to do in Destin because it combines beaches, nature, and outdoor recreation all in one place. The park has a small entrance fee, typically around $6 per vehicle for 2 to 8 people, or $4 for a single-occupant vehicle. Now, as for the culture of Destin, the best way to describe it is that it still feels like a fishing town that accidentally became a vacation hotspot. The city actually started as a small fishing village in the 1800s, and even today it calls itself the world's luckiest fishing village, with fishing charters and seafood being a huge part of the local identity. Destin is off to a strong start, so let's see what Pensacola has to offer. When you start looking at Pensacola, the attractions feel a little different from Destin right away. Destin is very beach resort focused, but Pensacola mixes beaches with history and military aviation, and that really shapes the experience of the city. One of the most famous attractions in Pensacola is the National Naval Aviation Museum. And for all the aviation buffs out there, all I need to say is Blue Angels. For the rest of us, this is actually one of the largest aviation museums in the world, and it's located at Naval Air Station, Pensacola. The museum has hundreds of aircraft, flight simulators, and aviation exhibits, and it's also the home base of the Blue Angels Flight Demonstration Squadron, who practice in Pensacola. Many visitors come here even if they're not aviation fans because the museum is huge and considered one of the top attractions in the entire Florida Panhandle. Another major attraction is Pensacola Beach, which is located on Santa Rosa Island. Just like Destin, this area is known for white sand and Gulf water, but Pensacola Beach is often described as a little more relaxed and less built up than Destin's main beach areas. Then you have historic Pensacola Village, which really shows how different Pensacola is from Destin. Pensacola is actually one of the oldest European settlements in the United States, with Spanish, French, and British history, and this historic district has preserved buildings, museums, and old streets that tell the story of the city going back hundreds of years. As for the culture of Pensacola, the best way to describe it is that it feels more like a real city that happens to have beautiful beaches, rather than a beach town that exists only for tourism. So since Destin is more TikTok and IG worthy, and it's in tone with that resort-style vacation we're all looking for, it's going to get the point for attractions. But what about walkability? Destin is one of those places where transportation can actually affect how much you enjoy your trip. If you're picturing a walkable beach town where everything is close together, Destin isn't exactly that. The city is relatively small, but most of the attractions, restaurants, and shopping areas are spread out along Highway 98, which is basically the main road that runs through town. Because everything is stretched along this highway, many visitors end up driving from place to place rather than walking. In fact, travel guides say driving is one of the easiest ways to get around because the road network is simple and Highway 98 connects most major attractions, beaches, and shopping areas. Now, there is public transportation, but it's limited. Destin's main public transit option is the Emerald Coast Rider (ECR) bus system, which operates routes along the coast and connects major areas in town. During the summer, buses run along the seafront and connect some of the main beach and tourist areas, but outside peak season they run less frequently, and the routes don't cover every destination. So technically, you can get around without a car, but you have to plan carefully, and it's not always convenient. That's pretty disappointing, but let's see if Pensacola is better. If you arrive in Pensacola, you'll quickly notice that the city is spread out, with downtown, the beach, and other areas separated by bridges and highways. Because of that, many visitors still choose to rent a car, especially if they want to move between downtown Pensacola, Pensacola Beach, and places like Perdido Key. Official tourism information for the city actually lists driving, rideshare, ferries, and buses as the main ways to get around, which shows that the city is designed with multiple transportation options, but is still very car-friendly. Now, Pensacola does have public transportation, which is something we talked about a little with Destin as well. The system is called Escambia County Area Transit, or ECAT, and it runs bus routes across the Pensacola area, including routes to downtown, the airport, and even Pensacola Beach. The system has dozens of routes and hundreds of stops across the county, so technically you can get around the city using buses if you plan your routes ahead of time. The ECAT operates a seasonal beach trolley, while Pensacola Bay Cruises runs the ferry system that connects some of the main tourist areas, such as downtown and Pensacola Beach, which can be useful if you're visiting during the busy season and don't want to deal with parking near the beach. As for walkability, downtown Pensacola is actually considered fairly walkable, with restaurants, shops, and historic attractions close together. So if you stay downtown, you can do quite a lot on foot, whereas the beach areas are more car-dependent. Still, because of obviously better connectivity and a walkable downtown area, Pensacola clearly gets the point here. When it comes to food in Destin, this is actually one of the reasons a lot of people choose Destin over other beach towns, because the restaurant scene is heavily built around Gulf seafood and waterfront dining. And you'll notice pretty quickly that eating here is often as much about the view as the food. And no spot describes this better than Beauchamp's Seafood and Oyster House. This place is known for seafood and Cajun-influenced dishes, which are common along the Gulf Coast, where Louisiana cooking has a big influence. You'll find things like oyster, shrimp, and Gulf fish, and it sits right on the harbor, so a lot of people come here for sunset dinners by the water. The back porch is another famous spot that's been around since the 1970s and is known for serving Gulf seafood right on the beach. The restaurant specializes in seafood like grouper, shrimp, and oysters, and one of the big reasons people go is that it's literally right on the sand. Then you've got Dewey Destin's Seafood Restaurant, which is a very different kind of place, This one is much more casual and is actually connected to the Destin family that the city is named after. And they serve fresh Gulf seafood in a simple waterfront setting overlooking Crab Island. You simply order at a window and sit by the water. Another popular waterfront restaurant is Harbor Docks, which is interesting because it serves both seafood and sushi, which you don't always find in a beach town. It's right on the harbor and is known for fresh fish, fried seafood, and sushi, so it's a good example of how Destin's food scene is really centered around fresh seafood and the fishing industry. So how does Pensacola compete? Destin is very resort and seafood focused, but Pensacola has more of a local restaurant scene because it's a bigger city with a historic downtown, so you get more variety in what you can eat. First off, Peg Leg Pete's is one of the most famous seafood restaurants on Pensacola Beach, and it's known for oysters, fried seafood, gumbo, and other Gulf Coast dishes. It's a very casual beach restaurant, and a lot of visitors come here after a beach day because it's right on the island and has been a local favorite for years. Another major restaurant in Pensacola is the Fish House, which sits right on the water in downtown Pensacola. This place is known for fresh Gulf seafood and Southern-style dishes, and it's especially famous for its signature grits a yaya dish, which is shrimp served over cheese grits. You'll also find McGuire's Irish Pub, which is actually one of the most famous restaurants in the entire area. This is an Irish pub and steakhouse known for steaks, burgers, sandwiches, and its very unique interior covered in signed dollar bills. It's not seafood, but it's one of the most popular restaurants in Pensacola and has been a landmark there for decades. If you want something more upscale, there's Jackson Steakhouse in downtown Pensacola. This is more of a fine dining restaurant known for steaks, seafood, and it's located in the historic downtown district. This is the kind of place people go for nicer dinners rather than casual beach meals. Then you have Five Sisters Blues Cafe, which slaps with southern comfort food like fried chicken, shrimp and grits, collard greens, and cornbread. This restaurant is actually located in a historic building and is known for live music and southern food. And then there's Global Grill, which is very different from the others because it serves international tapas-style food instead of traditional southern or seafood dishes. This place is known for small plates inspired by different cuisines around the world, and it shows how Pensacola has a more diverse food scene compared to smaller beach towns. With so many seafood options, casual dining, soul food, and upscale steakhouses, Pensacola wins the food point by a mile. But maybe Destin will fight back in the stays department. Destin isn't just about large hotels. It's known for beach resorts, condos, and waterfront stays. There are budget-friendly options too, but we'll start with the Henderson Beach Resort. This is one of the more upscale resorts in Destin, right next to Henderson Beach State Park. And it's known for being a luxury beachfront resort with pools, spa, and private beach access. It's perfect for a quieter, more relaxing beach vacation rather than being right in the middle of the busy harbor area. Another very popular place is the Emerald Grande at Harbor Walk Village. This one sits right at the harbor and boardwalk, and a lot of people choose this hotel because you can walk to many of Destin's main attractions from here, which is actually pretty rare for the area. If you're looking for something more mid-range, a very common choice is the Wingate by Wyndham Destin. This is not a beachfront resort, but it's more affordable and still very close to the beaches, shopping, and restaurants. Many travelers stay in places like this because you save money on the hotel and spend more on activities, food, and boat trips. And then for more budget-friendly stays, many visitors stay at places like the Village Inn of Destin. This is a simpler, older-style motel, but it's right across from the harbor, so the location is actually very good, even though the price is much lower than the big beach resorts. With solid picks like these, Destin will definitely be tough to beat. In Pensacola, instead of just beach condos, you've got beachfront resorts and downtown hotels. If you want the classic beach resort experience, one of the most popular places to stay is the Pensacola Beach Resort. This hotel sits directly on Pensacola Beach with waterfront rooms and beach access, and many travel guides recommend Pensacola Beach as the best area to stay because you're right on the white sand beaches, but still close to restaurants and attractions. Another well-known beachfront resort is the Hilton Pensacola Beach. This hotel is located in the main Pensacola Beach area and is within walking distance of restaurants, nightlife, and water activities, which is why many visitors choose this area if they want to stay somewhere walkable with things to do nearby instead of driving everywhere. If you want something a little more affordable but still near the beach, many visitors stay at the Surf and Sand Hotel on Pensacola Beach. This is more of a mid-range hotel, but it's still right on Pensacola Beach, and a lot of travelers choose places like this because you still get beach access without paying full resort prices. And then if you want a more city or downtown stay instead of a beach resort, you could stay somewhere like the Hilton Garden Inn Pensacola downtown. Staying downtown is usually cheaper than staying directly on the beach, and it also puts you closer to historic Pensacola, restaurants, museums, and the downtown area rather than just the beach. As you can see from this list, Pensacola's choices are more about comfort and premium accommodation for premium prices. Destin has both, so the point goes to Destin. When you're choosing between Destin and Pensacola, the weather is actually very similar because they're only about 50 miles apart on the Gulf Coast, and both have what's called a humid subtropical climate, which basically means hot summers, mild winters, and rain throughout the year. If you're trying to pick the best time to visit either Destin or Pensacola, spring and fall are the best overall seasons. In Destin, for example, temperatures in spring usually range from the upper 60s to low 80s Fahrenheit, which is warm enough for the beach but not extremely hot. And there are typically fewer crowds than in summer. This is why many travel guides consider March through May one of the best times to visit Destin for outdoor activities, beach days, and exploring the area. And the same goes for Pensacola. Summer is the most popular time to visit both Destin and Pensacola. The weather is hottest, but also the rainiest and most humid time of year. And this part of Florida often gets afternoon thunderstorms during the summer months, which is something a lot of visitors don't expect. So plan accordingly. Since both Destin and Pensacola have very similar weather, they both get a point. And the last thing we have to consider is budget. When we talk about budget between Destin and Pensacola, this is actually where the decision gets interesting, because the two places are closer in price than you'd expect. Destin is very much a tourist beach town, and places that are heavily built around tourism often have higher prices for restaurants, activities, and beachfront lodging. Pensacola is a bigger city with museums, historic districts, and more local neighborhoods, so you often have more price options and more budget-friendly restaurants and hotels if you look outside the beach area. So if I were explaining this to someone trying to decide between Destin and Pensacola, here's how I would put it. Overall, the total trip cost is very similar between the two places, but Pensacola is generally the more budget-friendly option because it has more non-tourist areas, more local restaurants, and more accommodation options at different price levels. So budget-friendly travelers would breathe more freely in Pensacola. Destin, on the other hand, is more of a resort-style beach town, and those kinds of destinations usually end up feeling more expensive, especially if you stay near the beach or do a lot of tourist activities. This means Destin loses to Pensacola in terms of budget friendliness. And now it's time for the official tally and the winner of the ultimate Florida beach town vacation. Destin took a strong lead with the attractions because it offered so much more than just historic sights. But then Pensacola tied it with the walkability and better connectivity. Pensacola then took the lead with a strong and diverse food scene, but Destin tied it back with better hotel options. Since both beach towns are very close to each other, they both got a point for weather, which means Pensacola took the tally gold by winning the budget point. So officially, Pensacola wins the best destination for a Florida beach town vacation. That being said, Destin does have a lot to offer, and it's the one you generally see on IG and TikTok, and it has a great nightlife along the Harbor Walk Village and in the Baytown Wharf area, making it the ideal option for a young group trip.